Welcome into a Wednesday edition of the Desmond Johnson Show. It's high school football preview. We got a lot of news coming in for you. Got a tropical storm of some sorts coming in from the Florida Panhandle, I think Thursday afternoon. So it's affected some kickoffs around the Triad. We'll get you up to date with that. Some of our games have been moved up to Thursday, 7 p.m. kickoffs. Marc Pruitt in the house with me from the Winston Salem Journal. He'll give us his top 3 high school football games to look forward to this week. And coming in just a little bit, Mount Tabor head coach Tyshawn Brown will stop by to preview Mount Tabor versus Reynolds, some CPC action later on as well. It's a high school football Wednesday here on the Desmond Johnson Show.
Live with Desmond Johnson, son, the live is one. Represent NC to the fullest.
Yeah, welcome to the Carolinas. Everywhere you go, the sky is Carolina blue, the finest. Live action, feedback, the city need that. I've been number 1, no cap. Here's the recap. Adrenaline is my addiction. I'm about to relapse. Step on the turf if you want and get your weed whack. I'm going harder than a martyr on the starter end. It's the heart of man, that's a rap like a cardigan. I'm breaking records, it's 4th and inches. I count the seconds. The over-under's my roar of thunder, my secret weapon. Yeah, the game is to be told. I don't break, I break modes. Follow me on Tobacco Road.
Live with Desmond Johnson, son, the live is one. Represent NC to the fullest.
And welcome into the Desmond Johnson Show. It's a Wednesday night lights edition, high school football preview. Marc Pruitt, prep beat writer for the Winston Journal in the house. We'll go through his top 3 games of the week as we get into conference play. We started last week, some eye-opening scores. As you know, the usual suspects, East Forsyth, Grimsley, Dudley doing their thing around the Triad, Reedsville doing their thing around the Triad. Brought to you by Emergency Responders Credit Union in Winston-Salem. If you are an emergency responder in the area looking for banking tools, go definitely check them out. They're over off of Link Road over in front of, I think it's Our Lady of Mercy. It used to be Bishop McGinnis over there by Forsyth Tech. So definitely go check them out there. If you're following us here, you can follow us on Twitter. You can follow us on Instagram. You can follow us on Facebook. We do have some programming notes. There are 2 games of the week. The WCOG game of the week on 1320 AM and 105.3 FM out in Guilford County. It's Grimsley versus Northwest Guilford. That game has been moved up to Thursday at 7 p.m. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's Grimsley's homecoming as well. So Chase Williams and Coach James Willamy will be on the call for that. 6:30 p.m. pregame, 7 o'clock live kickoff. That's on WCOG and TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com. The Forsyth County WTOB game of the week between East Forsyth and Davie has also been moved up to Thursday at 7 p.m. No pregame show. Me and Rod don't mess with that. We just parachute in right at the very beginning. 7 p.m. kickoff Thursday from the Nest in Kernersville. That game's on WTOB, 980 AM, 96.7 FM in Forsyth County, and online at TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com. The Glen game, I can't remember who they're playing. Reagan. Glenn's playing Reagan. We do have that game because it is a Glen home game. That game is still scheduled to be played on Friday due to commitments with My 48. It's a television game, but we also have that game as part of the Glen Sports Network. Mike Fanning will be in the house for that game Friday night. It's still scheduled for a 7 o'clock kickoff, but we'll see what happens as the weather and stuff starts coming in. Marc, I know you've been a very busy man the past couple of weeks with conference play kicking off. Before we get into your top 3 games to watch, any particular games that stood out to you this past Friday, or performances from teams this past Friday as we kicked off conference play across the Triad?
Well, I was at West Forsyth and Mount Tabor, which I thought would probably help determine who's going to win that conference this year. 2 of the best teams in that conference playing the first game in the conference schedule. And it was 2 great teams, great defenses, a lot of penalties. I know that was disturbing to both Kevin Wallace and Tyshawn Brown for the game. Jadon Blair, Mount Tabor's super 6'4" safety and Notre Dame commitment, had 2 big touchdown catches in that game where he literally leapt over the West Forsyth defenders in the corner of the end zone both times, and made a big stop on a 4th down play of quarterback Riley Horton early in the 4th quarter, when West looked like it was trying to get a little momentum back and catch back up. It would have really cut into the lead, Mount Tabor's lead. But Jadon had a super game last Friday night. the West defense played great, I thought. They gave up, or West gave up 14 points off of 2 turnovers in the first quarter. I mean, it was bang, bang. It happened in a minute and a half. A bad snap sailed over the quarterback's head, and it was recovered in the end zone by Matthias Banks for a touchdown. John Coles, another Mount Tabor defender, slapped at the ball from Horton's hand and recovered a fumble in the end zone. And before West Forsyth knew what was going on, it was 21-0 in the first quarter. And they kept chipping away, but ended up coming up short. But I thought it was 2 good teams putting on a decent display of football. And that I was glad I was there. I'm glad to see it. But I know we got another big game next Friday night between Mount Tabor and East Forsyth. I think that's going to be basically the winner. That's going to end up being the conference champion, I believe. So.
Yeah, it does seem like some separation starting to happen at the top, because we did have East Forsyth, West Forsyth, Mount Tabor, at kind of as that group up at the and let's say West, yeah, East, West, Mount Tabor. They were kind of those 3 that everybody was looking at, and then right underneath that you had like a Davie. You got some squads in the CPC like Reynolds, Parkland, even Glenn with new head coach Tommy Green that we didn't know a whole lot about just due to transfers coming in and out and changing of regimes or whatever it may be. But it does feel like that, like Reynolds and Parkland in particular, are a lot better than they have been the past couple of years. Have you had a chance to watch any of them yet?
I was actually out at Reynolds practice yesterday. They're older in the second year with Coach Davidiak now. So they're key guys. Joe Crawley, Mac Murphy, quarterback Tommy Elrod. They're all a year older. They're all got a year back in their system. They just don't have the depth, a lot of depth. They still have a lot of guys playing both ways. I think they were tied with Davie County last week at halftime. I think it was 17-17 at halftime, and then Davie scored twice in the second half and ended up winning. I think 32-17 was the final there. So I think Reynolds is showing people they can stay in games. They can compete this year probably a little bit more than they have been able to in years past, because they've got the key guys in those skill positions that can make plays. Parkland a couple of weeks ago, Parkland and Glenn were the only 2 CPC teams to play 2 weeks ago, I guess now.
Yeah, week, yeah.
And Parkland kind of just outlasted Glenn in what really was a slugfest in the second half. Parkland led 14-0 at halftime, and Glenn kind of was eating away at it in the third quarter and the fourth quarter. And Glenn had several chances in the fourth quarter, right at the end, to take the lead, win the game, and just couldn't get over the hump. One of them was a touchdown catch. The receiver, Jazeer Dixon, caught the ball and had one foot come down on the end line in the back of the end zone. And our photographer that was there that night got a great photo of that I sent to Coach Green and excuse me, and Glenn's AD, just to show them. I was like, yeah, they made the right call, and they both kind of told me the same thing. So yeah, we thought he was out of bounds too, but I think Glenn's got a great defense, got a great linebacker in Isaiah Buford, and they got some skills guys too. And now that Jazeer Dixon is back playing for them, I know when I talked to Coach Green over the summer, they weren't sure if he was going to be able to play this season because of some off the field things that were going on. But I'm glad to see that he's back. He was an all area performer for the Journal last year. And Glenn's got some guys. Glenn's got some guys that can make some plays too. So I think they can make some noise. And I think this game Friday night against Reagan, I think that's going to be an interesting one too, because Reagan's always kind of the wild card in the conference because they've got some guys too. But now that their quarterback Jacob Smith towards ACL a few weeks ago in a win against Mooresville, I think people might not look at Reagan as strong a contender right now. But I know Coach Meade will get those guys coached up and they'll be ready to go against Glenn Friday night.
Yeah, Reagan's always, you're right, they're always kind of like the wild card in the CPC in terms of where they're going to be. And that Jacob Smith injury really did affect them. Me and Rod Funderburg did East Forsyth Reagan on Friday. East 69-22 winners. They took that score down so fast when we were done with that game, because I was trying to confirm it while we were closing out the game, and they had already shut off everything. According to Drew Dull over at East Forsyth, it was the second most East had scored in a game, like in history. I think they scored 70 on Carver a couple years back. I was actually at that. It was 2017, where Carver's laid out where you park and then you kind of have to walk down a hill to kind of get into the bowl or whatever. By the time I got out, they kicked off when I got out of the car. By the time I got out of my car, went through the screening, whatever, got to the bleachers, walked down, went around the track to the visitor side. East was up 21-0. Like literally, like it happened so fast. It was like the kickoff return, one pass play, and a run play, and it was like boom, boom, boom. And this was 2017. They got to 69 on Reagan Friday night with relative ease. The game wasn't ever really in doubt. Reagan kept trying to run the ball because they were being a little limited at quarterback in terms of what they could do passing wise. And just to be honest, East is starting to hit a groove. They're really starting to play unselfish football where you don't know where it's coming from. And Bryce Baker's got even more stuff now. Corey Blair transferred in from Georgia, wide receiver. He had a touchdown catch. He's Jadon's cousin over at Mount Tabor. So the Blair family getting it in here in the CPC. It's not going to get any easier. East lost to Davie last year at Davie in kind of a shocking kind of game. It kind of was a gut punch for that East Forsyth team when it happened at the time. They get Davie coming into K-Vegas this Thursday, so tomorrow at 7 p.m. Me and Rod Funderburk, I think Chad Delp will be back with us. We'll have that game there. Let's get into your top 3 games of the week, and then we'll have head coach Tyshawn Brown come in from Mount Tabor to preview Tabor and Reynolds. But give us your game number 1 for Thursday, Friday. I don't know which one's going to be.
Let's start Thursday then. You already mentioned, I think Grimsley and Northwest Guilford should be a good one. Should be, but both teams are 4-0. But I would take Grimsley's 4-0 over Northwest Guilford's 4-0. Northwest has a lot of.
Say real quick, Grimsley. I wasn't expecting Grimsley to be this good with what they lost last year. I knew they were going to be good, but I didn't expect them to still kind of just pick it up and go. Like Faison's really kind of took the mantle of leader of that squad because before it was the other guy, Terrell Anderson, the other guys that left. They were the seniors on that team. He was a sophomore quarterback, but he's really become the leader of that team. I see that team follow him everywhere.
Yeah, and they've kind of developed somewhat of a different identity without the passing game that they had last year with Terrell Anderson and Alex Taylor. Mitchell Summers has been a workhorse for them all season. Faison has really come into his own. You got that defense with Bryce Davis. I mean, they still had plenty of talent at the positions they need to. Northwest might be kind of surprising people with the 4-0 record. A brand new quarterback this year who's Alex Anders Mitchell, who's thrown for close to 700 yards already. Got a couple of running backs who have combined to run for about 500. Defense has only allowed 33 points so far in 4 games. So I think they'll kind of get a real sense of who they are tomorrow night at Grimsley. And if we can believe in Northwest Guilford at this point of the season, I'm kind of skeptical. But I think if there's anybody that's going to challenge Grimsley in that conference, it's going to be Northwest and Northern Guilford. They're also off to a 4-0 start. So. And they'll play in a few weeks against Grimsley. So
that's usually, I think it's the last game of the year. Yeah. So I know they got Page Grimsley like the week before last, that rivalry week, and then I think it's Grimsley Northern Guilford. So that might determine the conference, depending on what Northern does throughout this as well. So that's a good one there. Give me your next one for your top 3 for this week.
We talked about East Forsyth and Davie already. I'll be at that one tomorrow night. And part of why I haven't seen East play yet. I've seen scrimmage games. I've been to a few practices. So I feel like I know the team okay, but I haven't seen them play yet. So tomorrow night is the real first opportunity I've had to go and do that. I'm excited to see it.
You're in for a treat.
Coach Brown, I talked last week with after the game with Coach Brown, after the West Forsyth Mount Tabor game. He called this week's game for them a get-back game against Reynolds. And I see that as the same scenario for East Forsyth since they went to Davie last year, lost, which I think was a real just punch in the gut to the whole team. I know I talked to Willard about it a bunch since how that kind of refocused them for the rest of the season because they're just not used to losing that. They haven't lost in conference games very often in the last 4 or 5 years.
And they're used to controlling their own destiny too, and that made it where they had to depend on other teams to beat other teams in order to win the CPC, and then it set up that East Forsyth West Forsyth showdown at the end of the year. Yeah,
what happened for them last year, and I know I think that game especially opened a lot of eyes about Davie County last season and the offense that they had with Ty Miller and Markel Summers and their 3 or 4 really dynamic wide receivers. And Davey kind of slipped up towards the end of the season, and the defense, I think, it got exposed by a couple of other teams, notably West Forsyth, notably Mount Tabor.
Yeah.
But I think there will be plenty. The memories will probably still be lingering in the heads in Kernersville of what happened last season.
Yeah. They're looking forward to this game. Because it doesn't normally. I don't think they were expecting to lose that game last year, and when they did, you're right, it did kind of refocus them and everything else. But I think the defense kind of got exposed a little bit in that game versus Davey last year, so they had to tinker with some stuff to really do it. But if it's your first time seeing them, they are not like last year. They are they go like 4 wide receivers deep right now, and it can come from anywhere. And
I can't imagine
Rottweiler, the running back, he's special. He's a special kid.
And Blair, I heard, was a 3-star recruit out of Georgia. Adding him to the mix with JP and Rich Berg, that's pretty stout right there.
Yeah, and Bryce knows how to sprinkle it around too. I think he had 1 incompletion Friday night against Reagan. So they're humming right now, and it's at the right time going to conference play. Give me your third game to watch here, because I think I know what it is, because I got somebody waiting in the green room to come in to discuss it real quick.
That's the one. I think Mount Tabor Reynolds, for reasons of it's been a huge. Mount Tabor was one of the biggest rivals to Reynolds when I went to Reynolds graduated in '89, and because Mount Tabor lost to Reynolds last year, which may have been the most shocking result. It was the most shocking result in the conference last year. And maybe one of the most shocking in the state of North Carolina. As Coach Brown called it to me last week after the game, it's a get-back game for us. So, well,
it's funny you mention that, because we actually have head coach Tyshawn Brown waiting in the back to come in to help us figure out what's going to happen here in this game. Let's go ahead and bring him in. Head coach Tyshawn Brown from the Mount Tabor Spartans in the house. What's going on, Coach? How you doing, man?
Hey, how y'all doing, fellas? Good to see y'all again.
Just chopping up this Mount Tabor Reynolds game coming up here. Now, have you guys moved your start at all? Are you still going Friday, or are you moving it up to Thursday?
No, they said it's not moving the game, man. They said we plan on Friday.
Okay, so Friday it is. So we'll have a little Thursday, Friday action, because East has already moved Davey up to Thursday. Grimsley moved up to Thursday. Coach Green over at Glenn told me last night they're not moving their game up because they're on my 48, so they got to stay on Friday. So we'll have a nice little mix of games Thursday and Friday night on Tobacco Road. So that's an awesome deal. Tell me a little bit about this this Reynolds Tabor thing, because y'all are treating this like a get back game, correct? Because I mean, they did come in, they did surprisingly upset you guys last year. What's the mentality with the squad this year going into it, especially the guys that were on the team last year and remember losing to a young Reynolds team?
It's got a lot of oomph behind it. I remember last year we played them in basketball, and all their students came in with shirts of the football score, and I think
wait, what? Yo,
they had a football score on their shirts, and including myself and the players, we all seen it, and it kind of made us feel some type of way, you know.
I'm with the level of pettiness, like that's fine, like I'm cool with all that, but they came to your spot.
Yeah,
it was wow. Okay.
And I just happened to be working the door that night. I was working the door. Yeah, I was seeing all these students come through there, and I'm like, oh wow. Oh wow. Yeah, you know.
Does not forget.
It happened to us though. I mean, they earned it. It happened to us, and they got the win. But you know, out of the last 19 games, you know, Mount Tabor's won 18 of them, and you know, we're more focused than we were last year.
It sounded like I got a battery.
I think we was kind of overlooking them last year, but this year I have made it my business to put things in the locker room and just to remind the guys what happened.
I love it. Marc, hit him with it. What do you got? I love it.
No, that was one of my favorite things you told me after the
game. That's actually what he told me, and I was like, "Let me get Ty on here because we need to discuss."
I think what I asked him was about you're not looking ahead. You know, you don't want to look. We know who's coming up in 2 weeks, but how do you kind of get them focused not to look ahead to that?
This is perfect. Yeah. It's perfect way to lay it out.
Coach, that's what Coach shared with me. And I was like, that's wonderful. That's great.
That figured it out. Now, I will say Reynolds and Parkland the past, I don't know, 3-4 years in particular have been down in terms of like, I know Coach Davidiak, he's the youngest coach in the conference by far, I would think, at this point. And him coming in and kind of trying to rebuild that. And I know Reynolds is going through stuff. They're finally building a home stadium. I've always felt like their situation was weird being at Deaton Thompson because that is nowhere near RJ Reynolds. They're going across the county to play home games. So for them to get their stadium, I think it'll be done by next year, I think. So that'll be a huge boost for Reynolds. And then Parkland, they got off to a good start this year too, which kind of opened some eyes around the conference because they have been kind of at the bottom of the conference for the past few years as well. It's mainly been East Forsyth, Tabor, West Forsyth, and Davie at the top four the past couple of years, just kind of swapping spots in the conference here. How do you feel about the CPC this year as a whole, Coach, in terms of we've always treated the conference as one of the tougher conferences in the whole state, and with Parkland and Reynolds starting to rise back up again, how are you surveying the landscape of the conference in terms of comparing it to Raleigh or Charlotte or the coast or wherever else? Where do you think the CPC stands amongst these other conferences right now?
From top to bottom, I think we're a solid conference. I think Parkland and RJ Reynolds they have improved. They both got players. They both got new coaches, so they got new life. And I think both gentlemen are doing a great job. Coach Sharp was on my state championship staff, so he holds a special place in my heart. And Reynolds doing a good job, man. They got a big time win over Mount Table last year, and then woke us up. But the top teams in the conference are always going to have good programs. Each year, we have coaches in our conference that can really coach. Like, we just don't have players. We don't have the top rated guys all the time. We have a few sprinkle here and there, but for the most part, we get the most out of our kids. And that's a hat off to like I tell everybody, Ty Willett has pushed me. He has pushed me. I see the success he had, and I watched him play in the state championship, and it pushed me to go a little harder. Same thing with Coach Snow at West, and Coach McGee at Reagan, and Stevenson when they was here. We got a solid conference. We do have 3 new coaches in the conference, and I really don't have a relationship with the guy at Glenn yet, but I'm looking forward to meeting him and playing against him.
Go ahead, Mark.
Coach, you mentioned the players, and you've got 2 great ones, and I'm going to include Matthias in that too. Is 3. They're all committed to D1 colleges. Is it harder to coach that with that, or I guess what I'm asking is, what are the challenges with that? Because I know there's great with it, with they're on the field, what they can do in the games and during practices and stuff. But what challenges does it present to have the caliber of player that they are and this high profile as they have been, Snook and Jadon in particular?
Real quick, my quarterback just committed to Davidson.
Right. Okay.
That's another one. It's a gift and a curse. It's a gift and a curse when you coach those caliber kids. It's like the recruiting process was crazy. I was extremely busy the last 3 years, answering phone calls, answering questions, talking about character issues, and just all type of things. Family, the media. This guy from Notre Dame calls every weekend. He calls every weekend about something. So like that part was like taxing on me. But anytime that you can do something to help a young man further his career, it really means a lot. But I feel like we got a lot of maybe not D1 players, but we got a lot of college football players on our football team. And when you have top guys like Jadon and Snook, that gives the other guys an opportunity to get seen by other people. So really, I tell everybody, at first I had to sell Jadon and Snook, but after that they sold themselves. Like, guys are gonna come see who are these guys. But you really go hard for your D2s and D3s. That's the guys that you really go hard for, and you take pride in it. I want to see all my kids go to college and get the education as cheap as possible. And that's why I tell the guys that's what it's about.
Hamilton, you copy?
Oh, that scared me. I didn't know what was going on. I thought I was at my house. I was like, oh, what's going on? we caught Ty at work, so it's like, got stuff going on. So it's,
Yes.
real Tabor's had some rivals over the years, and they've shifted in terms of who you would probably consider your main rival, your top rival, the one that you get up for the most. And Marc touched on it a little bit here right at the very start, where for the longest, Reynolds was the Tabor rivalry. I mean, you guys are, a stone's throw away from each other. You're on the same side of the city. You guys have battled in multiple sports, from football to soccer to basketball, in terms of that natural Winston-Salem city rivalry. What's it like when you're playing a team like that, as opposed to like Glenn or East or Davie or something that's not actually in Winston-Salem, but when you're playing one like a Reynolds or a Parkland or a Carver or whoever that's actually a Winston-Salem school? What's the vibe, especially at Mount Tabor, when you're getting ready for that game? Does it feel different when you've got that element of, oh, okay, it's a trade force school coming in here to play us, regardless of how they've been record-wise or whatever? Because I feel like those rivalries are a little bit stronger just off of, even when you guys have been in different conferences, you still have crossed paths or whatever, like in regular season contests as much as possible. What's the difference between playing like playing a Winston-Salem school as opposed to, somebody outside the city or the county?
It's the community be involved. I get so many phone calls. When I go to the barbershop, everybody want to talk about the game, and it's a community deal. Anytime we play RJ Reynolds, our kids literally, like some of our kids stay across the hall from RJ Reynolds kids. The line is split from, if you look on Thurman Street, the bottom of Thurman Street is RJ Reynolds, and the top of it is Mount Tabor. And once you go down Cherry Street, it's the same thing. The other side of the street is RJ Reynolds, and one side is Mount Tabor. So it's a community thing. And it's natural rivals. That game's gonna be packed. Each team is gonna troll each other on social media. It's fun times, man. I enjoy it during basketball season because I'm not as stressed.
Yeah, he's just working that door. Yeah,
yeah. So I enjoy watching those guys go back and forth. But I try to keep my guys humble and tell them to stay off of that social media as much as we can. But they're gonna get on there, man, and it's all fun. It's really fun.
That's the trick. Yeah, that's the trick, is to keep it, keep it on the field, keep it light, keep it fun, and because that's one of those where, like, especially when you're playing one like in the fairs in town or something, because you're gonna see these kids at the fair or whatever it is, and like people are gonna cross paths, they're gonna talk smack.
Oh no, they see each other in the neighborhoods. Like,
they see each other every day. Like, so it's like they've been waiting for this game for a while. You reminded me, Carver School Road is split up like that, where it's like Castle Heights is like East Forsyth, but across the street is literally Carver. Like, you could literally walk to Carver but be in East District. So it's crazy how they split it out like that, where you've got kids that play Pop Warner with each other. Now all of a sudden they might be on different sides or whatnot. I don't know, it's just crazy. I mean, I love the proximity of it. So with you guys playing Friday, I might try to slip out there and see it, because my game is on Thursday, so I might be a little free. I don't know. So we'll check that out. Marc, you got anything else you got for Coach before we get him out of here?
Just pick up anything on film after watching the film from the West game, Ty, that y'all need to really work on or key on this week? I know the turnovers were a troubling thing for you last week, and the penalties. But what kinds of things did you see on film that encouraged you guys?
Those two things you said was big talking points this week. We can't 150 yards in penalty. That's ridiculous. Some of them, I believe that we got a little tired, and it caused, I tell the kids all the time, fatigue, make a coward out of it. And some of the things we did, it was because we was tired. But, we can't have them mental lapses. And, we gave up a deep touchdown, and it was a communication thing. I want to, like, that was almost the most perfect game that we've played far as like mental mistakes. But we had about 6, and that's 6 too many. I want to get that down to 1 and 2. When you have great teams, you don't make a lot of mental mistakes. And I want to clean up my special teams, man. We got to hit some field goals.
All right. So this is so it's not moving. It's Friday, 7:00.
Yeah, they sticking with it, and we ready to go.
I think I saw the weather too.
Bags and our raincoats and whatever it takes.
Okay, yo, I know how y'all get down too. So it's like a rain game might work right in your favor. So I totally understand. And plus, every time they do this, whenever teams move out the way for like weather or whatever, it feels like the weather doesn't come. So like, I feel like it's gonna be sunny on Friday, dry, like the whole thing missed us by 50 miles or whatever, and we're gonna have regular Friday night football. So Coach Brown, it's always fun having you on. Good luck Friday. Again, I personally feel the CPC is the toughest conference in the entire state, top to bottom. Anybody can get got on any given night, regardless of whether you're first place or last place or whatever. It's going to be tight competition.
Hey, and not just the toughest conference, man. We got good coaches in this conference.
Great coaches in this conference. Great coaches in this conference. So definitely, if you guys get a chance, go out and check out Tabor and Reynolds. It's a Winston-Salem rivalry. It's a CPC rivalry, and we are just getting into conference play, so a lot to be decided. So that's a very important game going into this, with Tabor being one of the top teams in the state. We're going to go ahead and get out of here. Mark, you said you're going to be at East Davie on Thursday. They're going to have you going someplace Friday too, since they're going to have all this spread out, because I'm assuming they will.
I've got an idea in my head of a story I want to do, but I had to confirm that with the Glenn AD first before but I might go see Glenn and Reagan Friday. We'll see.
Yeah, because they'll be playing on Friday too. So we'll go ahead and hop out of here. We'll be back Friday with our NFL roundtable, and we'll look at some college football as well. We'll get you ready for the weekend. But definitely got high school football starting tomorrow night. We got some Friday night too. Follow us at Tobacco Radio on Twitter for all the latest on any game change times, anything like that for kickoffs or whatnot. But for Coach Brown at Mount Tabor, for Marc Pruitt, I'm Desmond Johnson. You've been watching The Desmond Johnson Show. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for having me.